While the back is still off, before I put the back on, I'm going to give it another good little sanding. I've just scraped these sides. I haven't sanded them, so I'm just going to go through and sand them to kind of even out the color and even out all the different marks and things. And it's a lot easier with that other side off there because of these ribs around the edges. So anyway, it's just easier to sand right now. So that's what I'm doing. I'm not going to bore you to tears with the whole video on this, but that's what I'm doing. Well, I've got a nice sanding done on all the sides and everything, and now I'm going to get the glue on here, and we're going to get her clamped up with the clamps, and should be back in one piece. I've double checked everything to make sure everything is tight. I don't find anything loose anywhere. And now that I think about it, though, this one little carving where they've chipped out a piece of wood here back in the old days, that's loose right there, and I'm going to go ahead and just put a little glue on that and fix that before we close her up. You can see I've got her clamped up really good. Now I'm going to take and go around and clean up all the little bit of glue squeeze out. I don't use an overabundance of glue, so there's not a lot of squeeze out, but we'll have some there and we'll clean that up. Took the clamps off of it. It's been sitting about 5 hours, and so it's solid, but won't do too much on it until probably tomorrow. But I'm going to clean up this front board a little bit while it's just sitting here. It's got some finger grooves in it, and so we're just going to plane that down smooth. Much nicer, very nice now. I'm going to just do a little bit of sanding and clean up on it, and then we'll get it ready for stain tomorrow. I've decided to go ahead and drill the holes in this. I didn't have the camera on. I used a center drill. If you don't know what that is, machinists use it because they're real accurate. They don't move, they're not flexible, so I use that to just punch the little indentations where I want to drill the hole. And now I've got a small drill bit that I'm going to drill the first hole on this side. I'm going to drill all the way through, but I'm going to take my time and just drill this side first, and then we'll get everything parallel and centered up and drill the other side. And this is just a small bit right now. Okay, so we've got the holes punched in there now, and now I'm just going to do it by eye. I'm going to try to look and make sure it's square looking and make sure it's level this way, and it's not exactly easy to do, and I'm just kind of checking it out. That looks pretty good. Drilling nice and slow because I don't want to bust out the other side. That worked pretty good. Chipped out a little tiny bit, but that's a little bit, so that's a good. Now I'm going to see if I can get this one straight and square and about plumb also. Worked out pretty darn good. Now I've got another bit to enlarge the hole with, which is almost the size that I want. It's smaller than what I want, so we should be good. It's smaller than the small side, which is over here that comes from the other side. So I'm just going to drill both of them with that. I'm afraid it's going to kind of grip and jump in there because of drilling it out bigger. I think we're good. I don't see any major problem, and when we will use a taper reamer to ream those holes out, and so they'll be just fine. I just wanted to get those out of the way before we start doing the finishing and sanding and everything, the staining and everything. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to trim up these holes just a little bit on the far side so that they don't get rid of this little burr that's there. Now I've got my tapered reamer, and I'm just going to go from the G side here through and just ream it a little ways. I'm not going to go real deep into it yet. Matter of fact, I'll just check these other holes to see how deep the reamer goes in by eye. They go in pretty far. We're a good inch through, and a good inch, well, almost an inch through on that one. So we'll stay shy of that. We'll try to do about 3/4 of an inch. And I'm just doing it by eye, but that'll get the hole pretty close then. And this side's got a little bit of burr going on, so I'll just cut the little burrs off here. Okay, and then there's just a little bit of burring on the inside. We're about ready to clean this inside up and just stain it black. Real proud of how those patches filled the whole inside and everything. It worked out really good so that it's real solid. It's not going to be some hokey repair where it's real thin or something. It's definitely the full thickness and should be just fine. It's been a day now. The sides have had time to set up and dry good. This is the interesting part. This is where the colorblind guy tells you what color this is supposed to be. It's amazing. I don't know how I do it. I usually am fairly good at matching up colors and getting them back to where they were. But as you've heard me say in other videos, I am, according to my eye doctor, profoundly colorblind. I've failed miserably on every colorblind test I've ever taken. But to the best of my ability to tell the color, it used to be kind of an orangey, yellowish, slightly brown color. It was a little bit darker in the centers and faded out light to the outside, which is kind of unusual, but that's kind of the way it was made. It was dark around the heel of the neck here, and I say dark, I'm just talking like the orangey brownish color. And so I'm going to make my attempt at making this. Now what I do, don't panic because you're going to think I'm just screwed up here, but I'm going to make most of the violin yellow, and it's a very bright yellow. And that gives me an underbase with these leather dies that I can change and move around. The yellow gives it some highlights and things, and then we'll go some oranges and stuff over the top of that, and some browns over the top of that, and that'll tone it way back down. So don't panic, but we're really going to make it look ugly here at the beginning. I've done this many times, that's why I'm pretty sure it'll be successful. I just take a shop towel and quarter it up and use 1/4 of that as my dye applicator. Talking about color and color blindness, I used to do a lot of watercolors back when I was younger, and you know, I don't know, I was decent at it. I wouldn't say I was a real high-end artist, but I think I did some pretty decent pictures. And I never had anybody say, wow, that looks like that was painted by a colorblind guy. So I don't know how I do it, but somehow or another I get the colors sort of in the right place. It's kind of funny to me. Because it's funny because I think I probably told this story on there once before. I went to buy a pair of black dress shoes. I forget, wingtips I think they called them back then. But anyway, I found them in a store in downtown St. Louis, and they were like $200 for the pair I wanted. On the way home that evening, I I stopped at a shoe store and found the exact same pair, at least style-wise. I mean, it looked identical to me, and I was looking for black. Took them up to the cashier and bought them. The little girl at the cashier gave me the evil eye, like, "Are you sure you want to buy these?" That was the kind of look she gave me. But she didn't say anything, so I just bought them and figured she just didn't like that style. That's all I figured. When I got home, I told my wife of this story about saving all that money, because I got them for like 80 bucks or something compared to 200 and some bucks. She goes, "Well, they're really nice, but you won't wear them." And I said, "Why is that?" And she goes, "Because they're purple." So dark purple can look black to me. I've always known that. Dark blue can look black to me really easy. Well, any dark color can look black to me really easy. If I get them out in the bright sunlight, I can generally tell the difference. Just thought I'd share that little colorblind story with you, and I've got a bunch of other ones. Like wearing a white dress shirt to work, and all day long people kept commenting how much they liked that shirt. They just thought it was wonderful, and I thought, what's it? At 5 o'clock that evening, I was on a van pool, so I thought, why would all these women keep telling me they like this dumb white shirt? I mean, I know it's brand new, but maybe my old shirts were so wore out, they just could tell right away that this one was a new one. And so I mentioned that on the van, and all the ladies said, "It's not white, it's pink." So all day long, my wife had sent me to work in a pink dress shirt. And I didn't know it, but, you know, I guess it didn't hurt me if I didn't know it, huh? So, there you go. Very light colors and very dark colors don't register very well with me. The other colors apparently don't register correctly either, but somehow or another I can usually figure those out. Like I said, don't be alarmed. I know it's bright yellow. The reason I know that is because I can read it on the bottle. And also, I will have my wife look this over before I call it done. But you can see how the yellow brings out the curl in the wood, because this wood is not exactly highly figured. It's not very figured, but it makes it look like it is. And that yellow accentuates that. So that's why that's one of the reasons I like to put the yellow on first. But like I said, the yellow is just kind of like a base, and then we'll go over the top of the yellow with plenty of other colors that will change it around significantly. Talking about color blindness, since I'm just wasting time here anyway, one of the other things that used to happen all the time, which wasn't so pleasant, was I used to get my tail beat because I would get the wrong hay all the time to feed the horses. My dad would say, "Go down there and you get that new green hay." Well, of course, I'd get the old brown hay every time, and when I was a kid, and couldn't tell the difference. He thought I was doing it to be ignorant. Well, there you go. We have a bright yellow fiddle. And it looks fine right now to me. I kind of like that look myself, but I'm sure it looks weird to everybody else. But anyway, we'll take a break for some lunch right now, and we'll come back and tone this thing down. Well, I've applied some reddish colors to the yellow now, and it's kind of reddish orange, but it's still looking really like the ugly duckling. It takes a while to get these to come back to where you want them. I'm going to add some browns now, thinned down with some yellow and some alcohol to thin it down so it's not so dark. And we'll rub that around and see what that does to it. Let's try a little bit of alcohol and see if we can lighten it up a little bit. It's very tough to come up with the original colors that an instrument had, and we're not going to get right there, but we're getting in the ballpark, I think. It's a little darker maybe, but we'll see. All right, let's do some browns to the back here and straighten the back out a little bit. Okay, take a little more alcohol and spread it around a little bit, see what that does. It's looking pretty nice. Not exactly what I was hoping for, but not too bad either. Now I'm just going to take the alcohol and try to lighten up certain spots to put a little bit of highlight in it. It's making the patches disappear a little bit better. You can still see them plenty good, but they're going away some, which is nice. Same way with the patch that was here on the corner. You can't hardly tell it now. More plain alcohol you put on it, the more it blends the colors together and lightens it up. And I'm trying to lighten it some. It's really starting to show off the figure in the wood better, which is nice. It's always nice to be able to see that. It doesn't look too blotchy now. It's starting to look pretty good. It'll lighten up some when I put the finishes on it. Well, I kind of like it actually. I think it looks kind of nice. It's a little bit on the darker side than I was trying to go for, but it's difficult to keep them in a particular color. Darkening up these little shadow corner areas. I think it's going to look pretty nice when it's get the varnish on it. I have to have my wife look at it though, because like I said, I sometimes don't see things that other people see. It's in the state of drying, so it's different parts are splotchy, as you can see, it's little splotches in it. But actually, when we get the finish on there, it's going to lighten it up and brighten it up some. So I kind of think it might look pretty good. Well, good, bad, or indifferent, that's what we ended up with. You know, you always want something better, but it does kind of match what the old one looked like to some degree, but not exactly. I don't have the exact same dyes and things. These patches, they blended in pretty good. They're not perfect, obviously. You can still see them, but your eye's not drawn there anymore. And I dyed the inside black back in here, so now you can't tell it was patched on the inside at all. So it looks really good. Just about ready to start applying the oil varnishes, and I'm going to do that with a brush. We got some oil varnish here, and I'm pouring it into the cup.
An old battered case, weathered and worn, with left the hinges all rusted and the fabric all torn, but still cradled inside was one old precious thing. It was Grandpa's old fiddle, oh how sweetly it rings. Grandpa's old fiddle played sweet melodies. He played it from his heart for my grandpa and me. Wrinkled old hands, he held it with love, and I can still hear it playing up in heaven above.
Well, that looks pretty darn good. I can see it soaking in a lot of places. One more good coat of that and we'll be just about done.
Honest man that I ever have seen.
Gotta find a safe place to hang her up. It's time for coat number 2 on the old Grandpa's old fiddle. And
the blue springs, and at night the hills echoed as.
Oh no! That's crazy.
Grandpa's old fiddle played sweet.
The violin varnish dried up overnight, literally. I think it just got a scum over the top of it there. May not be the best varnish, but it'll be good for a second coat. And I'll have to get some new stuff for the final coat then.
Still hear it playing up in heaven above. Just a boy at the time, I remember a day when Grandpa and that old fiddle some old tunes he did play. Well now Grandpa he has left us for heaven above, but he left me that old fiddle and now I play it with love. Grandpa's old fiddle played sweet melodies.
Okay, that's coat number 2. Looking pretty nice. It's going to look much better with, we'll let it dry for several days, give it a light sanding, and then we'll put on the final coat. And it'll look like $1 million. Just going through it and sanding it back down. I'm using 400 right now. I don't know if you've ever tried it, but this new sandpaper that I get it at Lowe's, it talks about it doesn't build up, and it really doesn't. It really is a significant difference. It's not wet or dry, or at least it doesn't say that, I don't think. I don't know if you can use it on wet or not. Doesn't say anything about wet, but anyway, it really does a good job of not building up. The stuff doesn't stick to it. So I recommend you try it. It's called Sand Blaster Pro Advanced Sandpaper. No slip grip. Yeah, the back is also easier to hold on to too. So it's got several advantages. We've got her sanded down on the first coats of varnish, and we're about to start applying the second coat. Here we go. good. I don't see any runs, which is what you really got to watch out for. Runs and dry spaces. Here's a little dry space. I'm going to look it over real good and hang her up to dry. The third coat of varnish, oil varnish, is dried on this. It's been drying for about 4 days. And even though I put it on as careful as I can, you never seem to get this stuff on without some kind of runs. And I really didn't think I had any runs in this, but as I look at it close, I see several runs, as a matter of fact. Little tiny amounts of run out of the varnish, but anyway, that just means we're going to have to do a little bit more sanding and buffing, but otherwise I think it's fine. I think we can work with what we've got here and buff it out and make it look good. Like I said, do some light sanding and buff it out, and I'll bring you back as we set her up. Well, I'm kind of disappointed. This fiddle looks real good in one way, but when you get down and examine the details, there's problems. There's a little spot here where there was a run, and when you try to sand that out, it got dull instead of smoothed out and buffed. Same way over here, there's a little tiny spot there. And then there's a spot on the back here. And I've already got way more hours in this than I'm getting paid for. But on the other hand, I just can't see sending it back with little flaws in it. And I'm going to have to try to put some more varnish on it, I guess. I've sanded and sanded and sanded until I'm blue in the face. And those spots just won't get any better. So I'm hoping if I put more varnish on them, it'll blend them back in and we can fix it. And I think I'm only going to put varnish on the back and on the top and not on the sides or neck anymore because I think they're fine. Doggone it. It just, there comes a point where you want to try to cut your losses, but at this point I'm just not there yet, I guess. We'll just have to see how it goes. I'm going to have to re-sand this because I was on the buffer this morning trying to buff this out and get it nice, and that looked okay, but, the buffing compound's on here now, so now I'm going to need to sand it all again, and anyway, just a lot more work, so I'm not going to bore you with that, but that's where we're headed. We're going to do a whole nother sanding on the top and the back and put another coat of varnish on it. Well, I didn't film all the other processes. I put many coats of varnish on this, sanded them off, buffed it out. It's still not up to what I really want, but it's as good as I'm going to get. I've spent way too many hours on this, and there's just no helping it. The back is really nice. I'm really proud of the back. The sides are okay. The top is a little lacking. There's a few spots on it that I just can't get to look as good as I want. But it does look like a very nicely cared for old violin, and that's what I was going for. I didn't want it to look like a brand new finish, like you spray on a lacquer or something and it looks just shiny glossy. This is kind of a gloss, but kind of a dull gloss, so it's nice. I fitted a tail pin into this, hand fitted it like I've done in previous videos. As a matter of fact, I think the video just prior to this I did this, so I didn't film it. I am going to now fit the pegs to these holes. I've already taken my reamer, which gives you a very precise angle to your peg, and I've reamed these holes. You have to be very careful that you ream the right ones on the right side. So this one is the E, and this one down here is the A. This one here is the G, the G, and this one is the D. And so you have to be sure you're reaming them on the right side. And anyway, I've reamed the holes, got them nice and smooth. And what you might not realize is when you get new pegs, they don't even come close to fitting the hole. And I could ream these holes out really big to fit this, but then that's kind of a bad deal, because then if you ever need to make new pegs, then this might not work anymore. So you want to keep these holes as small as you can, but yet have them big enough to use. And I feel like the holes are about where they ought to be, so now I need to turn these pegs down, and that's quite a process. I built a special deal for my wood lathe that I turn these on. So we'll take a trip in there and take a look at that. The first step in this process, the way I do it, is I drill a center hole in the end of the peg. I have a little center drill in here right now, and we just do it by eye as best we can. The center drill drills a little bit of a indentation in there, if you can see that. I hope it's focusing. And anyway, you'll see how we use that on the lathe. I also quickly learned that even though these pegs look identical, they never are. For instance, I made this little deal to hold the pegs on my lathe, and you notice this one's very tight going in. This peg here slides right through, no problem. So on the loose ones, what I do is I take a paper towel and fold it up around there and stick it in there. You can see how I put a piece of paper towel in here to help hold this. Now I'll put it in the 3-jaw chuck here. There's actually a lot of trial and error with this method, but it works. I snug it up because it's wood. You can't go real tight, but you can snug it up. And then I put this in. Then I spin it by hand a little bit to kind of see if we're close to center, and it doesn't look like we're too far off. Get it as close as I can get it by eye. Then I lock this all down. I'm going to use a rasp to shape it. With this method, there's a lot of test fitting. So you just have to take it out, and I've numbered this so that I know which side goes to which. So I write number 2 on this side here. You can't see that, but I've got number 2 written on there, and that way I'll put it back in the same way. You can see that it doesn't even really come close to fitting in there yet. It's not even going through one side yet. So their pegs are quite large when they come. So you have to turn them down quite often, quite a bit. So we're going to turn this one down some more. Once I get the peg turned pretty close with the rasp, then I sand it with the sandpaper here to smooth it back out real nice. You can see it's starting to go through the hole on the, that would be the E string. It's going through both holes a little bit. So what I'll probably do is just ream the hole just a little bit more to let it go in just a little bit further and just fine tune it there. But it's looking pretty good. So we'll move on and do the rest of that with all the rest of the pegs. I'm not going to film that. As you can see, I've got them all fitted, you know, at the
at the basic level, you'd say. They're not in all the way, but they are protruding both sides about an equal amount. So they're all approximately the same size, as I tried to ream all the holes approximately the same size. So they're about as close as you can get by eye, is what I'm saying.
All right, back at the bench, what we're going to try to do now is open the holes up just a little bit so that the pegs go through a little bit further. And all I can tell you is it's just experience. I want them protruding about a 1/4 inch, that's about right, and then I'll saw all that off flush. The other thing is I want to try to make sure the pegs are in line lengthwise this way. Just looking down the peg head. It looks pretty good. Okay, so we'll go to the other side now. Well, if it was any better, it would be perfect. Then it wouldn't look like I did it. So there you go. They're in there pretty nice. Now I'll mark each one of them and cut them off. Okay, now that we've got the end pin on and we've got the tuning keys ready, we're almost ready to install the tailpiece, although we're really not. I'm getting ahead of myself. I forgot to drill the holes in up here yet, and I'll show you about that in a minute. But since I've got this started, I put the tailpiece loop in the new tailpiece, and I just wanted to point out that I cut off those extra length. You test fit it. You want to make sure that it comes over this little nut back here, and that it's this direction past the nut, say 1/8 of an inch at the most. 1/16 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch is good, somewhere in there. And anyway, so that way you know you've got this at the right length, and then you just cut off the excess. But let's go back to this. Now, an important thing about this, in my opinion, is where you drill these holes. You know, you could drill them almost anywhere in the peg box and it would probably work. But if you think about it, you're always pushing from this side this way. So if you drill your hole real close to this side, pretty soon your string is going to be in your hole. So you want to drill your hole closer to this side of the peg box, closer to the big end of the peg box. You want to drill your hole closer there, because that way as the peg shrinks over time and your peg goes in further and further over time, your string won't be in conflict with this side of the peg box, if that makes any sense to you. So anyway, I usually take about 1/8 of an inch from this side, from the big end of the peg side, about 1/8 of an inch or so, and I drill my hole about there. And so I'm just going to mark all these, and I just drill my hole through kind of 90 degree to the flat. Not that it makes that much difference, but I've also put letters on all of these so I know where they go back in too, because they don't fit in each. You can't swap them around from one hole to the other, at least not correctly anyway. Okay, I have my little drill bit here. I'm going to just guess that that's about a 1/16 drill bit. It just has to be slightly bigger than your biggest string. And the reason I drill them perpendicular to the flat is because when you lay it down, you can hold it this way a little bit better. And you want to try to drill through the center as much as possible so that you're not compromising the integrity of the pin. You don't just force it all the way through. The bit will load up with this heavy ebony dust, and you'll either break your bit, burn up your bit, or make a big tear out on the back side of the peg. So you're better off going in and out and cleaning the dust off. And then after I get it, I usually run it through from both sides just to make sure the hole's good and clear. Okay, now what we're going to do is fit a sound post. Now this is the sound post that was in there. It's not a good sound post, I can just tell you by looking at it. It was handmade. Grandpa made this, and we will save it and put it in the archives here with the rest of the parts that are going back to the family. This it'd be a nice thing to put on display, really, to show how he made his own sound peg and put it in the violin, and how he installed it. He used this string to locate it and put it in there. I use a different method, but that's okay. The method doesn't really matter. But the wood that he chose was not a very good choice. It's a hardwood. It looks like it's maple. Very tight grained. So what we want is a spruce peg, and so we're going to make a brand new peg for this and fit it in here. Okay, we're turning down a sound peg, or sound post. Here's Grandpa's old sound post. We're just trying to get one that's a little bit smaller diameter. His is hand carved, it's really not even round, but we're going to get a round one. This is a piece of spruce, and we're just turning it down a little bit smaller diameter than the old one there. I believe we've got a nice sound post there that we can use. And I believe the diameter is a little bit smaller than what the old one was, so it should go through the hole. If not, we'll bring her back and turn her down some more. We're back at the bench. I made a sound post, which I cut it off just a little bit longer than the old one. By the looks of it, I thought the diameter was smaller, but it doesn't go through the sound hole very well. I mean, it'll go through here, but I like for them to fit through this part of the sound hole. So if it doesn't fit through there, in my opinion, it's too big around, and I'm going to go turn this down a little bit more. But should go through there with no problem. Yep, goes right on through. All right, before we set the sound post, we'll use this tool to measure it, but before we do that even, we want to get the strings on it and just very light pressure on the strings. Just barely enough pressure to hold the bridge. And then that way we'll know we're getting the sound post to the right length. What I do when I'm putting a new bridge on, this bridge is very thick, very clunky. It's a very nice piece of wood. It's well-aged old maple. And what I do is I set the bridge on the top like this, and then I take a pencil and I score across there. That way that helps me get some lines on here that I know the angle to chisel this foot off to match the top. So that's what we're going to do right now, is chisel the feet off a little bit. You're trying to do two things. You're trying to reduce mass, and you're trying to get it to fit the top. So, got the mass reduced there. Now we'll see if it fits the top. Yeah, it actually even fits better than the other one, so we're in better shape. Okay, you have to cut the feet first before you mark it for height. As I set my bridge in place, and I take this and I mark it, and it looks like this height of this is going to be pretty high. Now I didn't change this. This is the neck angle that it was originally. So we're barely going to have to take anything off the top of this bridge, and we just mainly want to thin it down. And I'm going to shape it a little bit. I'm going to cut a little bit off of this side here and leave it a little high in the middle here, and then come down. Just a little bit, just a tiny amount of shaping. The bridge is really thick at the moment. I don't know if you can see how thick it is, but we're going to thin it way down. We're going to plane that off right now. We've got our little finger plane. Some people use a chisel. I like to use the plane. It seems to work really good for me. That makes it look real good. It's much, much thinner now. It's very thin. And that's pretty much what you want. Okay, I think we're in good enough shape now that we can start putting the strings on it just very lightly. No real heavy pressure or anything. I like these Pro Art strings, D'Addario Pro Art. They're the perfect combination of, for me, of price and quality and sound. There's a whole lot of them out there on the market, and yeah, there's a lot of good strings out there. But I like these. They have a Perlon core, which is, I believe, is a type of a nylon, and that kind of mimics that old gut sound a little bit, so you get a softer sound. The other reason I like this particular set, and the set that I have here is a J56W, and it's a wound E, so that even the tiny string is wound, which you don't find that on most violin strings unless you get into the high dollar end. And you can pick these up for, $35–40 a set, somewhere in there. So they're fairly reasonable price compared to a lot of strings. And like I said, they just kind of marry all the different qualities that I'm looking for. Okay, this new tailpiece, all the tuner adjusters are all the way down. I want to bring them back all the way up so that there's plenty of adjustment. And we'll start with the big G string. I always start with the closest string to the nut. And speaking of that, I'm getting ahead of myself once more. We have to make a new nut for this. Let's see if the nut is in here. I don't remember. Yeah, there is a nut in here. We might be able to salvage that, depending on how good it is. Yeah, that nut looks like it'll be fine, so I'm going to clean it up and we'll put this nut on. Something that will poke it down through there. There we go. We finally got it in there. The big string is the hardest one because it's got the biggest wrapping. I've showed this little method I use to make sure I get the string spacing correct. I just take a white piece of paper and I mark where two strings are, and then I just keep moving them around until I get them exactly where the marks in the strings are at the same amount of space. I look down it visually, make sure I'm in the center, and everything looks good that way. Then what I do is I just go ahead and I mark the bridge, both sides of the string. What I have standardized on over the years is about 325 millimeters from the nut to the E string where it crosses the bridge. That's 32.5 centimeters. It's going to look funny on this one. If I do that, I'm going to be in front of these little marks on the F-hole by quite a bit. So I'm just going to compromise on this one and set it a little bit further back. It doesn't make too terribly much difference as long as you get the sound post in the right place. And the reason I like to standardize it is if you go from one fiddle to the next, then they play the same. But this one's not going to play the same as the ones I normally set up. It's a little bit further back. It's almost 33. It's not that much further back. It's about 3 millimeters further back. So it's not that big a deal. And it looks pretty good right there. Now that we've got the bridge with the strings on it and set about where we want it, it's perpendicular. Now we can go about setting the sound post. We want the sound post to be approximately right there inside the violin. So we wanted to, roughly 3/16 of an inch behind this and as perpendicular as we can get it. What we will do first is take this little tool, set it inside, and get a rough measurement. That should give us a good idea of how long we need to make the sound post. I'm going to make it a little bit longer than that. And now we'll cut her off, 1/16 of an inch, maybe not that much, proud of that mark. Now if you look, there's end grain on the end of that peg. You can see the end grain coming through. We want a slight, I'm exaggerating, but we want a slight slope on both end grains on the same side like that. That will match the top angle and the back angle of the carving. So what I'm doing is taking a file and just going to kind of file that angle into it a little bit. Now we'll try our first fitting and see how it goes. I have a clothes hanger that I have ground to a very sharp point and put a little tiny hook on it. You can probably see the little tiny hook there. And what we do is we go down about 1/3 from the top, not quite 1/3 even, and we drill into it. Trying to get it straight up and down, trying to get it just in the right place behind the bridge. This really does have a lot to do with the sound of your violin. And you don't want them in there too tight. Basically, if you take the strings off of it, it should just pretty much fall out. I think we're in pretty good shape there. So let's start putting some tension on here, and that should hold it in place. The thing you have to do is to make sure the bridge stays straight up and down when you're tuning any kind of any instrument, mandolin, violin, anything, cello that has a movable bridge, because the bridge will always pull forward as you're tightening up the strings. We've agreed to get a new bow and a new case for this violin, which I think is appropriate since it didn't have a case when they shipped it to me. And the bow that came with it is really shot, I think. It's really in bad shape. So rather than spend money fixing that old bow, we just got them a new bow, and we got a very good deal on these. I can get good deals on these bows if anybody's interested. Just email me and I'll give you the details. This one's a really nice one. It's an octagon shaped bow. I think it's Brazil wood. I don't think I bought the expensive Pernambuco bow, but it's a Brazil wood bow, which is still a very nice wood. They're always very straight. They're haired really well. They've got nice detail with the frog, with the extra, inlay, and they've got this, and there's a little button inlaid in the end. So they've got a lot of detail, and they're very nice bows. All bows come rosined, so you have to spend quite a bit of time rosining them up, or they won't make any sound at all. So here we go. We're going to start the rosining process. Let me show you a real quick tip on how to rosin one much faster. Just take some sandpaper. This is 220. Doesn't really make too much difference what it is. It shouldn't be crazy coarse though. And you just rough up the top of your rosin like this with your sandpaper. And on a brand new bow, that'll help it grip much faster. That might be enough to get it to make a sound, but I'm not sure yet. Let's see if it makes any noise. Sounding pretty good already. It's with this high of a bridge, it's got a little bit more hollow sound than it would ordinarily have. The higher you go on your bridge, sometimes you get past the diminishing point of return. It's good to have a high bridge. It puts more pressure on your top, but once you get it too high, then it sounds a little bit hollow. This one does sound just a hair on the hollow side. That's not a bad thing. It gives it a mellow sound, really very soft sound. Let's tune it back up and then we'll play it for you. Gone ahead and installed a nice chin rest on this. It's a real ebony chin rest and it straddles the tailpiece. Very good chin rest. Well friends, we've got this thing pretty much in good shape. It's all cleaned up and looking good. The finish on the back couldn't be any better, I don't think. The top, like I said, has got a few little splotchy places and the finish soaked into where the old cracks were and things like that, but I've spent way more hours than I'm billing for this. I'm only billing, believe it or not, I'm only billing 10 hours on this. And I've spent probably 25 hours minimum on this. So I way underestimated it. You know, things just wouldn't cooperate, mainly the finish for one thing. But it's really looking good. I'm really proud of it. I'm sure Grandpa is smiling from above. Show you the other things that were going with this. They ordered a new case, and look how pretty this case is. It's really nice. And I can sell these cases for roughly $75, plus shipping, of course. But it's got a cover here that covers the violin inside. Yeah, this is the way to protect them. They're really nice cases. And this new bow, as I think I showed before, this bow is I believe a Brazil wood bow. It's got some weight to it. It's not a Pernambuco, but it's pretty nice bow for about 75 bucks. I can sell those. And let's just see what she sounds like, and we'll put her in the case and get her ready to ship. I always play the same song, sorry, because I can't play very much on a fiddle, and so I just play a couple tunes that I do know how to play. Well, all it needs now is a good violin player. It's got a real nice sound. Once this finish gets hard, which is going to take it a while, maybe 6 months before it gets real hard, when that finish gets really hard, it's going to be hard to find a better sounding fiddle. It's really nice sounding. Hope you've enjoyed this series on this fiddle. It was a lot of work, but if you can try to remember what it looked like when it came in, broken in 2 places down the top, had those mechanical tuning keys on there with the pocket holes, the pocket knife holes dug out there, and just pretty bad shape. The finish was terrible, had glue all down through it and everything. It was coming apart in a lot of places, and we've put her back together and made Grandpa proud. I'm sure he would love to play it now. Thank you for watching.